welcome to the channel. In this video, I often pride myself on being able to either collect my own data or find realistic data sets. However, in order to practice, sometimes you need just a way to simulate data. How do I get a sense of what this algorithm might do to my data set, and how is it impacted based on the shape of the data? And so I was checking LinkedIn one day and someone sent me a message asking if I've heard of this widget called DrawData. And much to my surprise, given my personal and professional interests, I had not heard of this widget. And so I quickly explored it, and I want to go through that process of how I explored the widget, how you can get it installed into your system, and how I will use the understanding of that widget and various algorithms to see the impact of the data as it moves through the simulation and into my workflow. Let's get started. So to begin, I was searching just DrawData, and I have visited this GitHub page a couple times, as you can see now, and it works in the Jupyter, or really the IPython ecosystem. So the way I am running my VS Code is actually using an IPython kernel, which is the same type of kernel that you would get in your Jupyter interactive programming sessions. And it's really nice because you can see here from this syntax here, all you have to do is from DrawData import, in this case, they're showing a scatter widget. And from this GIF, you can see that all you've got to do is literally just draw your data. You can adjust the brush size, which will impact the spread of the data. And it gives you multiple different classes, A, B, C, and D. And then on the right side, you can see how many points belong to each of those classes. What they further demonstrate is that you can actually render that as a data frame or as a polars data table. And in this case, they're demonstrating the ability to take a data set and through some connectivity, build various algorithms and then plot the output of that on this decision surface. So to demonstrate how quickly we can move this idea that we've just seen on GitHub and into our coding environment, I wanted to begin first with the pip install command. So I've already run this command here, but if you want to run this in your cell, you just have to use this exclamation point and then pip install DrawData. Now I already have it. If you want to copy this notebook, I put this here just so you can see what its purpose was. And then I'm going to use the from DrawData import scatter widget as we've just seen in the GitHub page. And then a number of libraries we're going to use in order to perform the calculations in this notebook. So to begin, it's really straightforward. We're going to create an interactive widget simply by using the widget equals scatter widget. And this uses a lot of the IPyWidget's connectivity. So some of it should be somewhat familiar if you've used this before. And so let me make sure I run that first cell. And then we get that same canvas we just saw on the GitHub page. Now, by doing this, all we have to do is simply click the mouse and drag our cursor. And you can see that I'm just using class A, and I have 243 data points there. If I switch to class B, do the same thing, you see that we have that as well. Now, if I increase the brush size, I can then also want to switch to class C, and you see we're able to just draw our data set and pretty quickly get something that would help us to be able to build some low fidelity images or build a more conventional data set where we want to see, can we separate a class with two variables there and there, or let's say we have three classes and we want to separate these different groups. Now, where this data is stored, it may not be immediately intuitive, but we have this widget here, this widget variable there, and we have a couple of methods associated with it. We can use the .data method, and this will give us this list of dictionary points. We have our X variable, our Y variable, a color, and a label. But more likely, you're going to want to use the data as pandas or data as polars or data as X and Y. So the data.pandas gives us a very typical pandas data frame where you can see we have our X, our Y, our color in the hex code, and then the label. Now, oftentimes you might just drop the color because the label is really what you need if you're going to do any sort of supervised learning on this data set. But we also have the ability to do the data as XY. And you see we have a separation of our X array and our Y array. In this case, they're still using color. If you want to get the most out of that there, it's best to use two different variables. So we can say xy equals widget dot data as xy, And if you look at X, we will have just our X array there. And if we use Y, we will have just our Y array. Again, it defaults to color. I'd probably prefer to default to the label column. However, this is just the default. Of course, you could just assign this as a different label anyway. So to proceed, let's save this as a data frame. So we're going to do data as pandas. I don't actually have polars installed in this environment. So if we wanted to, we could use the data as polars as well. And let's just assign this as df and then use df.head, and we're already back into our normal workflow. And so from here, we can do things like PCA or kernel PCA or throw a number of supervised machine learning techniques at this data table. And this gives us a really good way to see how various algorithms react, where we know exactly what the data looks like, and we can then apply different techniques. What I want to do next is drop color. I don't need that as I explore the PCA and supervised learning. So let's just do this. So we'll say df equals df.drop and columns equals color. That way, we just have the data frame we need, which is our X, Y, and our label. And again, the X will be this horizontal axis, Y is this vertical axis, and then the label would be, in this case, the class A, B, C, or D. In this case, we're not using D, and we will see our data set there. So what I'm going to do next is split up my X array and my Y table. Now, this is more traditional in the sense that this is our X data. This is all the input data, and we're going to treat this as our target variable, this label column as our target variable. And so I just want to set this up. It'll kind of make the rest of the analysis a little bit simpler. And you see that I've already done some coding to do a couple of things. First, I want to do PCA and kernel PCA. And then I'm going to fit transform X through both of these algorithms. And I just move that, I propagate those two data frames down in order to do a visualization that's side by side. So I want to visualize a traditional linear PCA model with a kernel PCA using the RBF kernel. And I think this is going to be good because we can see how different data structures are impacting the output based on what our input data looks like. So let's run this. And so from here, we can see our 2D projection. So this is PCA. Now we're using two components of PCA, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering our data table has two variables, X and Y. But what I really want to do is demonstrate the contrast between, in this case, a linear PCA model and a kernel PCA projection. And for this data set, it doesn't make a lot of sense why we would use this RBF kernel, but let's just modify this a little bit more and reset this, make the brush size a little bit smaller, and let's set class A to be equal to this circle there, and let's set class B to be a larger concentric circle. And so we have this sort of bullseye or this target visualization here. Let's update our data frame by running this cell. Let's update our X and Y by running this cell here. And then let's just run this again. And you can see how with our linear projection with two variables, again, this left side makes a little bit less sense, but it helps us to understand what the right side is seeing. So here, by using this radial basis function kernel, we're getting a different separation because of the way the kernel is projecting this data into a different dimensional space. And we have a linear separation of the blue and the orange points when you can see that they are not linearly separated here. And this is the importance of using various kernels depending on what your data looks like, and also the importance of being able to explore different shapes of data quickly to understand what these algorithms are doing. And so as you can imagine, this might be difficult to predict based on the type of model. If we can linearize it, this is much simpler as we have a nice line that we can say on the right side is class B, on the left side is class A. Now we could take a similar approach in the supervised learning area, where we also have the ability with support vector machines to apply a kernel. So I have a lot going on in this cell here, but the idea is to try to create something similar to this decision map here, where we can see how, based on where the classes are located, we can see how the algorithm will use either a predict prob argument or some other likelihood statement to help us understand where the decision line is between class A and class B. So I want to simulate that, and to do so, I'm using this np.meshGrid, which will essentially pass a lot of XY arguments into our model once it's been fit. and allow us to build this map out. And so there we also need a y value, which would be the predicted value from our xx and our yy, which again comes from this mesh grid and NumPy. This section here alone probably deserves its own video. So if you want me to do that, just let me know. But essentially we're creating several points where we have a lower bound and upper bound for x and y, and we're able to within, by using linspace, to create our xx and yy. When we do this and then update our color map, we're doing a lot of work mostly to improve what the figure looks like. We'll also have a way to see our decision gradient. We're going to begin using a linear kernel for our support vector classifier. And here you can see that our linear boundary does not do very well for this set. And that's not surprising because this data is not linearly separable without a kernel. That is what we are essentially demonstrating here, right? Like here we're applying an RBF kernel to our PCA. Here is that linear projection, and thus we need a way to separate this. And this is where adjusting this RBF, and let's set a gamma value there, which helps us to really determine how much we're going to weigh the local points versus the further away or more global points. And I'm not quite sure what the best projection might be, but here you can see that now within this decision boundary map, we can now separate pretty easily the outer points, the outer concentric circle, and the inner circle. And this is the benefit of using a kernel, but also the benefit of having a way to design your data set. Now, if we had a simpler data set, let's say one that was easily separable in the linear space, we would not need this radial basis function. But this also highlights the importance of, or the power of, this support vector classifier, because we have these kernelized methods. We have other kernels as well. If we just hover over the kernel parameter, you can see we have a linear kernel, the polynomial kernel, the radial basis function, sigmoid, and pre-computed. So we have other ways depending on the shape of the data. And this DrawData widget allows us to explore various shapes. And so if we were to reset this, and let's go back to a data set that is linear. And so we're going to just draw something that's fairly straightforward. We would expect this to be fairly separable using a linear kernel, even though there are now multiple classes, and these algorithms have different ways of handling multi-class structures. Again, we have this data set here. If we look at df.label.unique, you see we have all of our labels represented in the order that they appeared here. So in the order that I essentially drew this data. If we update our XY and then this kernel here, in this cell here, we will have, again, a very different shape. So this is a case perhaps where a radial basis function kernel is not the best way to project this data. But we can see again, we know the data should be perfectly fine with a 2-component projection with a variable with the data set that only has 2 components. But if we look at the supervised machine learning, I want to keep my radial basis function. We can see it does an interesting job trying to fit this data. We do have these decision bounds, maybe a tad overfit, but this is good. We do expect there to be some misses here, but this is just getting us a good sense of how this algorithm is deciding where those boundaries are, where those support vectors are between the different classes. Now let's switch back to our linear function and see how that does. And in this is a much simpler projection of the data. We don't expect these lines to be that wiggly unless we have more data to support that. But I would rather see these linear decision boundaries between my 4 classes. And then if we had a more sophisticated data structure, then we might explore different kernels. And so in this video, we see we have an ability to draw the data, take advantage of the fact that we can draw different shapes, as well as using techniques like PCA and Support Vector Classifier, which have linear kernels and multivariate kernels to allow us to either take advantage of the data that's already linear, like we see here, or linearize nonlinear data, like I showed you with those concentric circles here. And from this, we can draw other data sets, we can explore other algorithms because we know exactly what the answer should be. If there are any other libraries you'd like me to try, also send those to me either in the comments below or on LinkedIn or wherever you might find me. In any case, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.